Alright, so it's been about a month since I did a Donovan Mitchell video, and at that time it was a little uncertain on are the Jazz really going to want to move him. They were shooting down calls, and wait, they actually weren't. It seemed to have opened up a little bit more, and there was a stretch of time where it seemed like he was definitely going to get moved to the Knicks, and we were arguing about how many draft picks. I say we, it was like Twitter or whatever. And now we're just in this kind of weird spot where I guess there was one random night where he was almost traded to the Knicks and then it didn't happen. And it seems like we all believe he's going to end up on the Knicks this offseason, but what could be holding this thing up? Well, I guess the first thing to say actually is, Shams said that their talks have stalled. Tony Jones, who works for the Athletics, said that the Jazz are still a little uncertain on which direction they want to go in. I mean, at this point, I just don't really know what roadmap there is to retooling this thing around Mitchell because a lot of guys have changed teams this offseason. And I mean, I remember a month ago I was like, well, are those John Collins rumors real? At this point, it seems like they're not. Miles Turner, that's always an option, sure. But Turner's not going to change your franchise. It just doesn't seem like there's an obvious way for the Jazz to be competitive in a short amount of time around Mitchell right now. Unless I'm underrating the roster, I mean, Mike Conley's going to be 35 next season. I love Jared Vanderbilt for his offensive rebounding and stuff, but he's not going to change your life. Bogdanovich and Clarkson, good scorers, no doubt, but Rudy also opened up so many shots for those guys because of his gravity going to the rim, and even if you were going to replace him with like a decent center, the impact's just not going to be the same, right? And even if they did want to do the sort of in-between thing where they keep Mitchell, but they don't make the playoffs next season, try to get as high of a pick as you can, super tank in the last like 15 games of the year or whatever. At that point, Mitchell would have 2 years left on his contract, and you would have to have an insane offseason in order to have him be all the way back in my opinion. Anyway, let's talk about the Knicks. Evan Fournier would have to be in the move to make the money work. After that, they've got basically 11 firsts that they can move, and 7 of those are their own, and then you've got a Bucks one in 2025, Mavericks, Pistons, and Wizards. The Pistons and Wizards ones are not going to convey for a minute. So besides making the money work with Fournier's deal and all that, I believe the Jazz would not take anything below 4 firsts and one of Grimes or Obi. On the flip side, I don't think the Knicks would offer both of those guys in pretty much any scenario. And I also don't think they're going to want to move like 7 firsts. So you try to work in the in-between pretty much. The original thing the Jazz asked for based on a report was 6 firsts as well as Grimes, Quickly, Obi Toppin, and McBride. That's too much. I think Grimes is the most interesting young guy the Knicks have, honestly, even more so than Obi. And I love Obi because of his screen setting, his energy, his cutting to the basket and all that. But Grimes, for one, has got a pretty decently sized ceiling on defense, I would say. And 2, his offense is more intriguing than just catch and shoot 3-and-D guy. Like, he moves off ball. He's willing to take some contested threes. He's had some threes off the dribble. There's definitely something there with Grimes. Of course, the Knicks can offer the most picks for the guy. Atlanta was rumored for him in that Shams thing, which just confused me because they just moved their picks for DeJounte Murray. So at that point, I'm like, I don't know how they have a chance here. The Raptors are a really interesting Mitchell team to me because they are kind of desperate for some more scoring juice. And I do think they would have the defenders and the passing around Mitchell. The problem there is, number one, I don't think that they are as determined to pull off a big move as the Knicks apparently are. Like, obviously the Knicks have a price that they will not go beyond to get Mitchell, but I think that price is a bit larger than Toronto's. The other thing, too, is even if the Raptors did want to move Gary Trent, OG Anunoby, Precious Achua, whatever combo of those 3 you want to put together, are we sure the Jazz would even want that compared to just more draft picks? Of course, Miami has been included, but look, if the Jazz are going to want draft picks, Miami just cannot outbid the Knicks, as pretty much nobody can in these rumors. The other thing, too, is those rumors that say Ainge does not want RJ because he doesn't want to pay him. Then I would assume the same thing about Tyler Hero, unless Ainge really loves Tyler Hero. All the other teams rumored, the Kings, the Hawks, the Hornets, the Wizards, all these teams either have moved picks or their picks are locked up in protections to where you can't move them. So as of right now, it really is just down to how many picks are the Knicks going to throw at Utah. And I mean, there is a chance that the Knicks right now are in a state of like, we know that nobody else can compete with us for picks, so we're just going to wait you out. Real quick, just to talk about the Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson backcourt. Of course, you go into this more if the move actually happens, but to me, I think Julius Randle is the key to that working defensively because I am confident in RJ as well as Mitchell Robinson's defense, as well as Isaiah Hartenstein's off the bench. I thought one of the better quiet moves of the offseason. And so then if you got Julius, who's also on his best defensively, which, 2 years ago he was better on defense, then at that point I think there's enough size to where you can get away with it with those two in the backcourt, especially because I would just like to bank on Mitchell being his best defensively because he's going to have Tibbs yelling at him every day. With that said, there would still be some challenges, and perhaps in the playoffs, you could have a bit of a tougher time because teams can focus in on it more, but also if you're the Knicks, you want to get to the playoffs first, you know what I mean? The other thing if you're the Knicks is not trading for Mitchell, and the idea there is, well, what if we wait to cash in all of these picks for someone better? I mean, listen, you can try it. It's just you're weighing the unknown versus the right now where you definitely have a chance to get the guy, you know what I mean? You only get so many chances to acquire a 25-year-old all-star.